everyone. This is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, April 6th of 2025. Now, I have a really fun message to share with you today that was based toward the end of the week on a really great conversation I had with my niece. So, Misty, here's a shout out to you. We had a great texting conversation that spurred some great thoughts, and then we jumped on a phone call later in the week. So, it started with the idea of this is there's some hard things going on in her life and my life. We were kind of just talking through some things, and then partway through the conversation, the texting conversation, I said this to her: this simulation is actually funny if you think about it. We still have to play it smart. And then she said, "Ha, I like your spin, tell me more." And then I said, it's just like being in the Matrix, if you think about it. And then she said this: my dad always told me to be good or be good at it. And then we continued. And then I said, you can still have a rough time in the simulation, but since we know the game, we've simply got to play it and play it smarter. And now we can be good and good at it. So then we texted for a while still, and then it was like, it kind of spurred some really beautiful thoughts the next morning when I woke up and opened up my journal. But let me start with this, because this is, at the beginning of the week, I had just a lovely little page of journaling that was just kind of a drop-in reminder for me. So this is where it started. Stillness and a little bit of quiet would be really helpful for you. My higher self was talking to me, just basically telling me, stillness and a little bit of quiet would be really helpful for you, Jane. And I'm sure many of you can relate to that. Sitting with no noise to think clearly and take a moment to collect your thoughts. Sometimes something wants to come through and you just need the stillness. You know, I talk a lot about how much I journal, and there are times when I don't journal as much as I should. And not even with the journal, there are days that I go without completely sitting in silence or stillness altogether. And in a way, that needs to stop. I need to take more time. And that was the first thing that came through at the first of the week. You know, a little bit of quiet would be really helpful for you. And then this, simplify the layers. It doesn't mean to ignore the complexity, because this is a complex life. This is a complex simulation. This game of life is not simple, okay? But the message was to simplify the layers. You know, the layers and layers and layers of this game are intense. They can be very intense. So simplify the layers doesn't mean to ignore the complexity. Just simply simplify the layers, okay? Release control over those things that you can't control. Discernment to know the difference. Okay, and then right after I wrote that, then I had the serenity prayer just dropped in to me, that the name of it. Remember this serenity prayer. And I actually couldn't remember it exactly word for word, so I looked it up. And the serenity prayer simply goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. You know, that it's a beautiful little prayer, and I believe that the whole of it, there's more to it. I think it's part of AA. I know that for sure. I don't know if it was written specifically for AA, but it's a beautiful prayer that is a good reminder for all of us, especially as we walk through these chaotic times, right? So then I had this great conversation on a text with my niece, and I wrote at the top of that in the morning, we have to be good and good at it. Even in this simulation, this game, this life, this experience, we can still get hurt, okay? We can still break hearts. We can still suffer. We can feel pain, and we can cause pain, right? We can feel scared and stuck. All of these things are real. All of these things are real. The pain, so think about this is really powerful. The pain is how this simulation, this life, or this game talks back to us. It's how it says, I'm going to whisper a little bit of pain at you. And if you don't pay attention, and correct something to make your life less painful, then I'm going to hit you with something really painful. And I can think of multiple times during my life when I've had little whispers of something to either do something or don't do something, and I haven't paid attention, and then I've gotten a big wake-up call that's a lot more painful. And sometimes I've been grateful that the wake-up call I have gotten wasn't worse than it could have been, right? So inside of this game, what does it actually mean to be good at it? I had to ask myself that question so that I could really pose this to you and everybody here. So it's not about, what I figured, it's not about morality. Morality is important, but it's about being a master. It's about mastery, okay? We need to learn to respond, not react. So respond to something. I think it's easy to jump into an overreaction. That's what happens most of the time, unless we're really strategic about it, is we want to respond rather than react, okay? We need to not let the pain make us bitter. We need to let the pain make us better. You know, these are all things we've heard 100 times, right? We need to choose integrity even when the game incentivizes things like lying, cheating, or bringing our less than better self. This simulation incentivizes us to lie, to cheat, to bring a version of ourselves that is less than. These are the things that are incentivized. I think it's crazy. Leveling up our soul, not just for the things. We need to realize it's not just about the stuff, the money, or the status. Okay? We need to level up our soul. That's a mastery in this game. That's what this game is all about, okay? If we can feel pain, then we can cause pain. I wanted to really reiterate that because we might get a wake-up call because it causes someone else a whole lot of pain and suffering and damage or something. That might be a wake-up call for us. This is where we need to be smarter, right? This is where we need to be smart. This is where we need to be good. It's fun to be good. It's good to be good. It's a skill to always have integrity and never lie. It's a skill. This is life mastery, guys. Okay? And how we show up is what matters. Okay? I'm going to kind of go through this quick because I think this message should be short and sweet and just as to the point and powerful as I can make it today. That is what I'm feeling. Okay? We need to not to get more stuff and status, not who dies with the most toys wins. You know, we've all heard that too 100 times. That has always felt hollow and shallow to me. You know, I'm at a point in my life where I want less stuff. I think stuff anchors us to this physical reality. You know, the lighter we are, the less stuff we have. So I love the minimalist and the minimal outlook in life and having things that bring us joy and keeping it there, right? So it's not about getting more stuff and more status, but it's to remember who we are. Remembering who we are while we are here in this game, while we're still in it. Not on our deathbed, not when we are transitioning to the next life or transitioning out of this body, hopefully up to be with God. That's where that's where I want to be. It's my consciousness, who I am, that's where I want to end. It's to remember that while we're still here in this game, right? So what if being good is about being strategic in this simulation? What if, here's what I wrote, kindness, compassion, empathy, forgiveness, and integrity leaves a mark and changes the code of the game? What if these skills, these emotions, these frequencies change the code? What if we looked at it that way? We're here not just to play the game, we're here to change the code. We're here to change the code. What if love is the base code and it's the base reality is love? What if that? Holy moly, how beautiful is that? Okay, then I wrote this. This simulation is wild, okay, but we don't have to be lost in it. Okay, we simply must learn to be a better player and to get good at it. I think that's the whole point. We need to play with our heart, our wisdom, and our presence. We need to bring our heart to it. We need to have wisdom. And I know we gain wisdom as we get older. I think we can gain wisdom and have it very deeply when we're young as well. I really believe that. And we just need to bring our presence. We need to bring ourself. Okay? And it changes everything. We need to keep playing, we need to keep feeling, and we need to keep being good. It sounds so cliche, because we are starting to remember who we are, and that we are more than this game. We're here to experience it and have fun with it and all the stuff. We're more than this. But we're here for a purpose, to have fun and to experience and to master these skills. And what if part of the purpose for all of us is to change the code? I love that. Okay, so here's some things. I wrote down some skills. So if you think about you're walking through a video game, and I'm not a video game player, but I know people who are, and I've seen enough video game things that I know that there are different skills you walk through. You collect coins, you get swords and weapons, and you collect things, you collect skills, right? So here's some skills that we can walk through this game with. Compassion is the cheat code to deeper connections. When we have compassion, it changes the way we can connect with other people. Forgiveness breaks the loop of suffering. We suffer because we can't forgive. It puts us in victim mentality. We think someone has wronged us, or something has wronged us, or whatever. And those things, someone might have wronged us. But we get to choose if we forgive ourselves, and we stay in that victim mentality. So forgiveness changes the loop of suffering. We can continue to suffer. There are people who that's their mode, and they almost don't realize that they're in that mode of suffering. They think they have to suffer because there are other people suffering in the world. And I don't think that's true. I personally don't think that's true. I think we can be aware of it. We can send love and compassion, but we don't have to suffer because we know there is suffering. Really think about that. We're changing the code for the negative if we are suffering when we don't have to suffer. Right? Okay, and integrity. This one is good. Integrity is the compass that will guide us through the illusions. The propaganda, the programming. If you tell a lie, you have to remember that so that you can make sure, and if you told someone this and it wasn't true, integrity walks us through, and it breaks through the illusions. Imagine if you had people in the media who were always telling us the truth. Can you imagine how different the world would be if we simply got the truth and we got things to actually help us navigate? It would be pretty incredible. And then the last thing I wrote in this little list of skills, and this to me is the mother of them all, is love. Love is the original source code. Everything else is built on it. Everything else is built on the source code of love, right? Can you stay soft in a hard world? This was a question I asked myself. And can you keep your heart open even when it feels easier to shut it down? And I know many of you can relate with both of these things. It is really actually easy to go hard. When we get hurt, we shut ourselves down and we harden ourselves. Now, I'm not saying don't get a thick skin if somebody gives insults at you, because you start to realize those really don't have anything to do with you. You can still stay soft in a hard world. You can still keep your heart open. And I have a couple other things I wrote about that I think are really fascinating. And I think this is how we win this game, is to stay soft and keep our heart open. Okay? Even when the world tells us it's easier to shut it down. We need to play from our soul, not from the surface. Not from the surface of this game. We need to play from the depths of our soul. Even just a few of us recognizing that, the small percentages doesn't matter. I think there are more people than we know that are having these deep realizations. They're remembering who they are and all of the stuff, right? We need to realize that we do face obstacles every day. And here's what I wrote: ego, fear, shame, apathy, guilt, and anger, right? These are all things that are obstacles, like obstacles in the game that come at us. Our ego can get in the way. We can take ourselves down with our own ego. We don't even need to have something from another person or a situation. Our own ego can be an obstacle. That's an interesting thought, right? So here's some extra tools that I figured we can use to play this game. So curiosity helps us to stay open and stay growing. Stay curious. What's going on? Ask people. You could even ask people, hey, what's going on with you? How are you? Everyone loves to have a conversation about themselves, and it deepens the connections. And stay curious about the pyramids. Stay curious about what's happening. And stay curious about everything. It helps us learn and grow and stay open. Silence. Silence is an extra tool, okay? Use it to hear the real signals. We can hear all the stuff coming in and all the stuff, but unless we use silence to hear the real signals, then I feel like we're getting lost in the noise, okay? Humor, okay? Nothing breaks the matrix like laughter. Enough said, right? And presence. We need to be present. The more in the now you are, the less trapped you will feel. The more in the now. You don't have to feel trapped if you're just here. You're just being present. So love isn't just the reward in this game. It's the entire architecture of the entire simulation. Okay? Love is not only the reward here, guys. It's the entire architecture. If you look at the source code that way, the whole simulation is built on the foundation of love. The whole game changes. It changes. The code beneath the code is love. By acting in pure love, we sync up with the mainframe. I put this whole thing in the context of a game, a simulation. So when we sync up with the frequency of love, we are connecting into the mainframe of this game, all right? Especially when things get hard. And we need to realize that real love is risky, okay? When we open our heart knowing it could get hurt or broken, then we're here to win it, right? We all know this. If we do open our heart in this simulation, what we need to realize is this: it's going to start to shift around us. We actually have the ability to change the code. If we stay open, we stay in a place of love and forgiveness and compassion and integrity. We stay in that place. We have the ability individually to change the code. Like this is powerful, serious stuff, you guys. Okay. And then I wrote this. Okay, then we're no longer playing the game, we're remembering it. And then I had this thought. I think there are different levels of where we are in the game of remembering who we are and remembering the source code of love. So here's the beginner level. I love when it's safe. So I'm going to love, and I'm going to love you only if I feel safe with you. I'm going to love if I feel safe in this situation. Then I'll show love. So that's the beginner level. And that's okay to be there. That's okay. We all start it there and it's all good. The second level, the intermediate level, is I love even when it hurts. So then you say, okay, I know this, I might get hurt, but I'm going to still fall in love. I know that this friendship, this relationship, this job, I'm going to open myself up to the possibilities of all this stuff, even when I get hurt. That's good. That's a good second level. Now the final level, this one is so perfect. When you realize that you are love. When you can say, I am love. That's it. That's the advanced level of this game. And when you walk through this world, through this experience, through this simulation, with that's mastery. And I will tell you for sure, I'm not there yet, but I am working on it. Okay, so love isn't just a feeling, it's a frequency. Okay, love shows up in the things that move us. Okay, and here's what I wrote about that. It shows up in the things that matter, when we give, when we belong. These are all love. And then something that really dropped into me this week was when we see beauty and we feel the ache of beauty. When we see a double rainbow or even a regular rainbow, when we see, I stand at the top of a mountain and I look around and I there's such beauty there that I feel it aches. It's so beautiful. This is love. When I held my grandchildren when they were a few days old, oh my goodness, what you feel in that moment, even my own children, this is where we slow down, we be in the moment, we sit in the silence and we look around us and see the beauty. This is really amazing. So then I wrote this. If we really tune into the love frequency and start acting from it, so don't just tune into it, start acting from that place, we can start syncing with this entire operating system of this game, of the whole game. We can sink in. And then I wrote this. Here's how this plays out. We can love without condition. We can hold space for someone who might be breaking or hurting. We can be the one who holds space. Even holding space is such a beautiful, beautiful thing. So beautiful. We show up fully, even if we know we might get hurt. Getting hurt is part of it. But then I think we can choose in the layers of how we get hurt. And I'm not talking even about a physical hurt. We can get physically hurt in this simulation, for sure. And this is part of being good and being good at it, right? So this simulation becomes more real and not less. That's what I think. I think that we get to base reality. When we get to that pure love base code of the simulation, that's more real. That's more real than all the other stuff, all the other BS, right? Everything sharpens, everything slows down, and we remember that the whole point of this whole thing was never to win. It was to feel, to love, and to connect. That's the whole point. And then at the very end of this journal I wrote, be good and get good at it. I think that that's a perfect place to end it. I think that, wow, every day brings something new and something big and something astonishing and something chaotic in this world. And I think that being a master at this game and recognizing that the source code of this whole experience that we're living in is love, and to embody that and be that. That can be a challenge as we walk through these times. So I'd love to know what you think about this. Are there some other life skills? There's a ton I left out, I know. But I'd love to know what you think about this. And I hope you have a beautiful second week in April. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you next time.